Shadows in the penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse. But Camila Vasquez barely noticed. She was focused on the quarterly projections displayed on her tablet, her fingers tracing the upward trajectory of Vasquez read enterprises with satisfaction. At 42, she had transformed her father's modest construction company into a global real estate development powerhouse worth billions. "Those numbers look promising," came a deep voice from behind her. Dominic Reed, her husband of 15 years, placed a glass of Cabernet on the glass coffee table and settled beside her, his tailored suit still impeccable despite the late hour. He exuded the confidence that had first attracted her when they met at Columbia Business School. "The Shanghai project is exceeding expectations," Camila replied, accepting the wine with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Benjamin says we'll break ground on the Dubai towers next month." Dominic nodded, loosening his tie. "I told you Benjamin was the right call for international expansion. He took credit so effortlessly, so naturally that most people forgot it." Was Camila, who had discovered Benjamin Joe at a sustainable architecture conference 3 years ago. "How was your meeting with the Blackstone Group?" she asked, setting aside her tablet. "Productive. They're interested in partnering on the Miami waterfront development." Dominic's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then turned it face down. Peter, with some contract details. Camila noted the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes flickered to the phone again. Peter Kaufman was their legal counsel, but he rarely contacted Dominic directly after hours unless it was urgent. Peter certainly wouldn't be sending contract details at 10:30 p.m. "A meeting with Vivian tomorrow about the charity gala," Camila said, changing the subject. "She thinks we can raise double last year's amount for the Education Foundation." "That's great, honey. Just make sure the guest list includes the Morgans and the Hastings. We need their support for the zoning approval." Dominic was already back on his phone, thumbs moving rapidly. Later that night, as Dominic showered, Camila picked up his phone. It was a breach of trust, something she'd never done in their marriage. But the midnight texts, the late meetings, the subtle changes in his behavior had been adding up. Her thumb hovered over the screen, hesitating. She put the phone down. No, she wouldn't stoop to that level. Not yet. The next morning at the office, Camila reviewed acquisition proposals with her CFO, Talia Wong. Talia had been with Camila since the beginning, one of the few people who knew that, despite the company's name, was Camila who held 67% of the shares. "The Riverside Heights property is undervalued," Talia noted. "Perfect opportunity to expand our affordable housing portfolio." "Draw up the paperwork," Camila decided. "Let's increase the sustainability features. I want those units to be energy neutral." As they wrapped up, Talia hesitated. "There's something else. The expense reports you asked me to review." She slid a folder across the desk. "There are some irregularities in Dominic's corporate card statements." Camila opened the folder. Hotel charges at the Mandarin Oriental on nights Dominic was supposedly in Chicago. Restaurant bills for 2 at intimate venues. A jewelry purchase from Cardia that Camila had never received. "Thank you, Talia," she said, her voice steady despite the coldness spreading through her chest. "That will be all." That evening, as she and Dominic prepared for a business dinner with investors, Camila watched him check his appearance in the mirror, adjusting his pocket square with practiced precision. "How many people will be there tonight?" she asked casually. "Just the usual suspects. The Johnsons, the Wilsons, probably Richard from Deutsche Bank." He checked his watch, the Patek Philippe she'd given him for their 10th anniversary. "The car should be here in 10. Camila nodded, applying her signature red lipstick. "I invited Veronica Fletcher to join us. Her venture capital firm is interested in our tech integration initiatives." Dominic froze momentarily. "Veronica? I thought she was in London this week. She flew back early, specifically asked to meet with us." Camila watched his reflection. "Is that a problem?" "No, of course not," he recovered quickly, just surprised. "Let's head down." As they rode the elevator to the lobby, Camila contemplated the empire they'd built together, or rather, the empire she'd built and allowed him to claim as co-creator. The skyscrapers bearing their name across 3 continents, the thousands of employees, the billions in assets, and now the shadows growing between them, casting long, dark silhouettes across everything they'd created. The silent ledger, The charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art buzzed with New York's elite, champagne flutes clinking against the backdrop of classical music. Camila moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her burgundy gown catching the light as she greeted donors and business associates. From across the grand hall, she spotted Dominic, charming a group of investors, his laughter carrying over the music. "Camila, darling, this event is magnificent." Vivian Takahashi, her friend and the foundation's director, approached with 2 champagne flutes. "We've already surpassed last year's donations. It's wonderful news." Camila accepted the drink. With a smile, "The scholarship program means everything to me." "You've built something remarkable," Vivian said, her eyes drifting to where Dominic stood, both with the foundation and everything else. Something in Vivian's tone made Camila pause. "Is there something you want to tell me, Viv?" Vivian hesitated, then leaned closer. "It's probably nothing, but I saw Dominic having lunch with Veronica Fletcher at La Bernardine last week. It seemed ... intimate." The confirmation sent a cold wave through Camila's body, though her expression remained neutral. Veronica Fletcher, the ambitious venture capitalist who had been circling their company for months. The woman who had mysteriously canceled her appearance at tonight's gala at the last minute. "Thank you for telling me," Camila said quietly. "Would you excuse me for a moment?" In the quiet of the museum's administrative office, loaned to her. As a major donor, Camila made a call to her private investigator, Harrison Wells. "I need everything on Veronica Fletcher and her interactions with my husband," she said without preamble. "And I need a complete audit of our company holdings, subsidiaries, and personal accounts." Discreetly. "Mrs. Vasquez Reed, I'll have preliminary information for you tomorrow." When she returned to the gala, Dominic was checking his phone with a frown. "Everything okay?" she asked, sliding her arm through his. "Veronica just texted that she's come down with something and can't make it tonight," he said, tucking his phone away too quickly. "What a shame," Camila replied. "I was looking forward to discussing her proposal." The next morning, Camila woke before dawn. While Dominic slept, she slipped into her home office and opened her private laptop one Dominic didn't know existed. For years, she had maintained separate records of their business dealings. A habit her father had instilled in her before his death. "Never surrender complete control, Mia," he'd told her. "Keep your own books, no matter how much you trust your partners." The files Harrison sent were comprehensive. Photos of Dominic and Veronica entering the Mandarin Oriental, dinner receipts. Text message transcripts obtained through means Camila didn't want to know about, but worse than the affair were the business dealings. Dominic had been secretly meeting with investors. It's about spinning off their technology division, the most innovative and profitable part of their company, with himself as CEO and majority shareholder. The proposal documents included elaborate plans to dilute Camila's ownership through a series of complex transactions. Camila leaned back in her chair, strange calm settling over her. The betrayal was complete, both personal and professional. Over the next week, she maintained perfect normalcy. She kissed Dominic goodbye each morning, discussed business over dinner, even made love to him on Tuesday night, all while methodically meeting with her most trusted advisors. First was Talia Wong, her CFO. "I need to restructure our holdings," Camila explained, sliding a document across the desk. Without alerting anyone, especially Dominic, Talia's eyes widened as she reviewed the papers. "This is ... extensive. You're creating a separate holding company?" "Phoenix Ventures," Camila confirmed. "I want to transfer controlling interests in our most valuable properties in the entire tech division. Use the shell corporations we established in Singapore. Make it look like routine diversification." Next was Marcus Hernandez, her childhood friend and now one of the top corporate attorneys in the country. "You're essentially preparing for war," Marcus said, after reviewing her plans. "Are you certain about this?" "I've never been more certain of anything," Camila replied. "How quickly can you prepare the documents?" 2 weeks, Camila. "Once this is initiated, there's no going back." "I'm counting on that." Her third meeting was with Jasmine Park, head of their public relations department. "I need to press releases." "Prepared," Camila said. One announcing a major reorganization of Vasquez Reed Enterprises with me as sole CEO. The second announcing my separation from Dominic Reed due to irreconcilable differences. Both need to be ready to release simultaneously, but absolutely no one can know about them. Aspen's professional demeanor slipped momentarily. Mrs. Vasquez Reed, are you sure? Completely sure? And Jasmine? After this is done, you'll be reporting directly to me as Executive VP of Communications with a substantial raise? Throughout these preparations, Camila maintained her composure, even as she discovered more evidence of Dominic's deception. The diamond bracelet he'd bought was in Veronica's possession, photographed on her wrist at a tech conference. The Dubai project, which Camila had nurtured for years, was being positioned as Dominic's brainchild and draft press materials found on his cloud drive. Each discovery should have broken her heart, but instead, it hardened her resolve. This wasn't just about a cheating husband. This was about a man who thought he could steal what she had built. On Friday evening, Dominic announced he had to fly to Chicago for an emergency meeting with investors. I'll only be gone one night, he promised, kissing her cheek. We'll have a proper date night when I return. Camila smiled. Of course. Safe travels. The moment his car pulled away, she called Harrison. Follow him. I want to know exactly where he goes and who he meets. That night, instead of sleeping, Camila finalized her plans. By morning, she had confirmation. Dominic had flown to New York, not Chicago, and checked into the Four Seasons with Veronica Fletcher. She opened her laptop and sent one email with a single word: proceed. Within hours, the machinery she had set in motion began to turn. Assets shifted, accounts froze. Legal documents were filed. The silent ledger she had maintained for years was about to become very, very loud. Glass castles, the morning light filtered through the blinds of Camila's office as she reviewed the final transfers with Talia. On her desk sat 3 phones, her personal device, her work phone, and a secure line connected only to her core team. Of 5 people orchestrating what they had codenamed Operation Phoenix. All the tech division assets have been secured under Phoenix Ventures, Talia confirmed, sliding financial statements across the polished mahogany desk. The Singapore holdings now control 87% of our international properties, and the trust in your father's name has reclaimed ownership of the North American developments. In the timeline, Camila asked, her voice steady, despite having slept only 3 hours. Everything will be finalized by noon tomorrow. The board notification goes out automatically at 9 a.m. Monday. Talia hesitated. Dominic returns tomorrow evening. Are you certain you don't want to confront him before this goes public? Camila's fingers traced the edge of a photograph, the evidence Harrison had delivered that morning showing Dominic and Veronica entering a conference room at Morgan Stanley. Additional photos showed James Wellington, their competitor, joining them shortly after. No, she said finally. Let him return to a fait accompli. After Talia left, Camila called Marcus. Are the litigation preparations complete?
Yes.
We've documented every instance where Dominic attempted to divert company resources or misrepresented ownership. If he fights this, we're prepared to counter with charges of corporate espionage and breach of fiduciary duty, and the personal matters. Prenuptial agreement is ironclad, especially given the evidence of infidelity. We've also prepared restraining orders should they become necessary, though I doubt it will come to that. Camila thanked him and ended the call, turning to gaze out at the Manhattan skyline. The Vasquez Red Tower, gleaming in the morning sun, would soon be simply Vasquez Tower. The thought brought no joy, only a hollow vindication. Her secure phone rang Harrison. Mrs. Vasquez Reed, we've intercepted communications between Mr. Reed and Ms. Fletcher. They're planning to present their proposal to the board on Monday. They've already secured tentative support from 3 board members, Thompson, Davis, and Wilhelm. Thank you, Harrison. Continue monitoring and send transcripts to Marcus. When the call ended, Camila opened her laptop and pulled up the board. Member dossiers sheet compiled. 3 members supposedly loyal to Dominic. 9 total on the board. She needed only 5 to maintain control. Her next call was to Regina Blackwood, the board's most senior member and an old friend of her father's. "Regina, I'd like to move our lunch to tomorrow if possible. There are some matters I need to discuss before Monday's meeting." "Of course, Camila. Is everything all right? You sound tense." "Everything will be," Camila replied. "I'll explain tomorrow." That evening, Camila attended a business dinner alone, explaining that Dominic was detained in Chicago. As she conversed with industry leaders and politicians, no one detected the storm brewing behind her composed exterior. She laughed at the right moments, discussed property values and zoning laws, and accepted compliments on her latest philanthropic initiative. Only when she returned to the empty penthouse did she allow herself a moment of vulnerability. Standing in Dominic's closet, she ran her fingers over his tailored suits. The silk ties she had chosen for him over the years, 15 years of marriage, 15 years of building an empire together, or so she had believed. Her phone chimed. With a text from Jasmine, press releases finalized. "Ready when you are," Camila texted back. Monday, 9:15 a.m. Sunday morning brought a message from Dominic. "Meeting's running long. We'll be back Monday morning instead. Miss you." The lie should have hurt, but Camila felt only a cold determination as she deleted the message without responding. Instead, she dressed carefully for her lunch with Regina, choosing a conservative navy suit that conveyed strength and stability. At the private dining room of Le Cirque, Regina greeted her warmly. "Camila, you look wonderful, but I can see something's troubling you." Over the next hour, Camila methodically laid out the evidence of Dominic's betrayal, both personal and professional. She explained her restructuring plan and the emergency board meeting she planned to call on Monday morning. "I'll need your support, Regina," she concluded, "and your help securing votes from Westfield and Jones." Regina studied her thoughtfully. "Your father would be proud of your strategic thinking. But are you prepared for the public spectacle this will create? The spectacle would be worse if I allowed Dominic to proceed with his plans. This way, I control the narrative." "Very well," Regina nodded. "You have my support. And I believe I can deliver Westfield and Jones as well." By Sunday evening, Camila had secured commitments from 6 board members. The Phoenix team had completed all financial transfers. The press releases were scheduled. There was nothing left to do but wait. She slept in the guest bedroom that night, unwilling to lie in the bed she had shared with Dominic. In the morning, she rose early, dressed in a crimson power suit, her armor for the battle ahead, and arrived at the office before anyone else. At 8:30 a.m., her secure phone rang. "Mrs. Vasquez Reed, Mr. Reed's plane just landed at JFK. Harrison reported, based on intercepted communications, he's planning to meet with the board members before the official meeting. He still doesn't suspect anything. Thank you, Harrison. Your services have been invaluable." At 8:45, Camila gathered her core team in the conference room adjacent to the boardroom. Talia, Marcus, Jasmine, and her executive assistant, Felix, sat around the table, each with specific instructions for the hours ahead. "Once this begins, there's no turning back," Camila reminded them. "If anyone wishes to recuse themselves, now is the time." No one moved. "It's very well. Felix, please inform security that Mr. Reed's access to the executive floor should be maintained, but his key cards to all other facilities have been deactivated." At precisely 9 a.m., the automated system sent notifications to all board members about an emergency meeting at 10 a.m. simultaneously. Dominic's access to company servers was restricted to read-only, as his corporate email account received an automated message about system maintenance. The glass castle Dominic thought he controlled was about to shatter, revealing the true architect. Behind its walls at 9:05, Felix's voice came through the intercom. "Mrs. Vasquez Reed, Mr. Reed has arrived in the building." Camila took a deep breath. "Send him in." The board meeting, Dominic Reed entered the conference room with the easy confidence of a man who believed he held all the cards. His bespoke Italian suit and freshly trimmed hair suggested he'd prepared for an important day, as not the one that awaited him. "Camila," he said, surprise evident in his voice. "I didn't expect to find you here with the team so early." His eyes scanned the room, noting the unusual assembly of Camila's closest advisors. Is something wrong? Camila rose from her seat at the head of the table, a position Dominic usually occupied. We need to talk before the board meeting, Dominic. Her voice was calm, professional, the voice she used for difficult business negotiations. Board meeting? What board meeting? Confusion crossed his features as he pulled out his phone. I don't see anything on my calendar. The emergency meeting called 15 minutes ago, Talia supplied, sliding a tablet toward him with the notification. Displayed. Dominic's brow furrowed as he read the screen. An emergency meeting to discuss critical restructuring and leadership transitions. What is this about? Perhaps we should speak privately, Camila suggested, gesturing toward their shared office. As the door closed behind them, Dominic's confusion gave way to irritation. Camila, what's going on? Oh, I just got off a plane from Chicago, and suddenly there's an emergency board meeting I wasn't consulted about. Camila walked to the window, looking out at the city they had ostensibly conquered together. You weren't in Chicago, Dominic? You were at the Four Seasons in New York with Veronica Fletcher. Before that, you met with James Wellington at Morgan Stanley to discuss divesting our technology division against my explicit instructions. The color drained from Dominic's face. Camila, I can explain, don't. Wait. She turned to face him, her expression impassive. For months, you've been planning to undermine me professionally and personally. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Dominic's shock quickly morphed into calculation, his mind visibly working through scenarios, looking for leverage. Whatever you think you know, we can discuss this reasonably. We're partners, after all. We're partners, Camila corrected. She opened a drawer and removed a thick folder. These are the transfer documents showing all Vasca's Red enterprise. Assets have been restructured. The technology division, international properties, and North American developments are now under my direct control through Phoenix Ventures. Dominic snatched the folder, rifling through pages with increasing agitation. This is illegal. You can't just... It's completely legal. The assets were always mine, Dominic. I simply allowed you to act as co-CEO because I trusted you. She placed another document on the desk. This is a copy of our original ownership agreement, signed before our marriage. It clearly states that I retain 67% controlling interest in all company assets. The board won't stand for this, he hissed, desperation creeping into his voice. The board has already been briefed. I have 6 votes secured. In 30 minutes, they will ratify my position as sole CEO and accept your resignation. Dominic laughed bitterly. I'm not resigning. Then you'll be terminated for cause. Camila slid another document across the desk. Corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty, expropriation of company resources. The evidence is extensive. It would be highly embarrassing if made public. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in Dominic's eyes. You wouldn't dare. It would damage the company, your precious legacy. A short-term setback is preferable to allowing you to continue your deception. Camila checked her watch. The choice is yours. Sign the resignation, retain your personal assets and a modest settlement, or fight me and lose everything, including your reputation. Dominic stared at her, searching for the woman he had married, the woman he thought he could manipulate. Instead, he found himself facing the daughter of Roberto Vasquez, the shrewd businessman who had built an empire from nothing. You've been planning this for some time, he said finally, a grudging respect in his tone. Since the moment Talia showed me your expense reports from the Mandarin Oriental, Camila confirmed. The hotel where you and Veronica drafted your proposal? To steal my company. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Vasquez Reed. The board members are arriving, Felix announced. Thank you, Felix. We'll be right out. Camila gathered her materials. Your decision, Dominic? He picked up the resignation letter. Jaw tight with suppressed rage. You'll regret this, Camila. I regret many things about our marriage. This isn't one of them. At precisely 10 a.m., Camila and Dominic entered the boardroom. 9 board members sat around the massive table, expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. Regina Blackwood nodded slightly to Camila, confirmation that the votes were secure. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Camila began, taking her seat. As the notification indicated, we're here to discuss significant changes to the company's structure and leadership. Before she could continue, Dominic interjected. Before we proceed, I'd like to present a proposal regarding the technology division. That could substantially increase shareholder value. That won't be necessary, Dominic, Regina said firmly. We're here to address Mrs. Vasquez-Reed's agenda first. Dominic glanced at Thompson and Davis board members he thought were allies only to find them avoiding his gaze. That he had been outmaneuvered, settled over him like a shroud. Samila nodded to Marcus, who distributed folders to each board member. What you're receiving is documentation of a restructuring that has already occurred. All company assets have been consolidated under Phoenix Ventures, a holding company wholly owned by me, as per the original ownership. Agreement established prior to Vasquez-Reed Enterprises' formation. As the board members reviewed the documents, murmurs filled the room. Wilhelm, one of Dominic's supporters, spoke first. This seems highly irregular, proceeding with such significant changes without board approval. The changes fall within my authority as majority shareholder, Camila replied evenly. The board's role today is to ratify these changes and approve leadership transitions. Leadership transitions? Davis asked, finally looking at Dominic. Camila continued, effective immediately. I will assume the role of sole CEO. Mr. Reed has submitted his resignation. She slid the signed document to Regina, who examined it before passing it to the corporate secretary. Dominic sat rigidly, his knuckles white against the armrests of his chair. For the next 40 minutes, Camila methodically presented her vision. For the company's future, highlighting increased investments in sustainable development and expansion of the technology division's innovation lab. Throughout her presentation, Dominic remained silent, his expression unreadable. When she finished, Regina called for a vote. All in favor of ratifying the restructuring and leadership changes as presented by Mrs. Vasquez-Reed? 7 hands raised, one more than Camila had expected. Opposed? Thompson and Wilhelm raised their hands, though Thompson couldn't meet Dominic's eyes. The motion carries, Regina announced. Congratulations, Mrs. Vasquez. The board looks forward to your continued leadership. As the meeting adjourned, board members filed out, some stopping to shake Camila's hand or offer quiet congratulations. When only Camila and Dominic remained, he finally spoke. You've won this round, Camila, but this isn't over. It is over, Dominic. Security is waiting to escort you from the building. Your personal belongings will be delivered to the address. Of your choosing, he stood, adjusting his tie in a final gesture of dignity. 15 years together, and this is how it ends? It ended the moment you decided our vows and partnership meant nothing. Camila met his gaze unflinchingly. Goodbye, Dominic. As he walked toward the door, he turned back. What about Veronica? Does she know what you've done? Asked Fletcher. Received notification this morning that her venture capital firm's proposal has been rejected. She also received copies of certain photographs that I imagine she'd find quite interesting. For the first time, Dominic looked truly defeated. Without another word, he walked out, flanked by 2 security guards who had materialized in the hallway. At precisely 9:15 a.m., as planned, Jasmine released the press statements. By noon, financial news networks were running breaking stories about the dramatic restructuring of Vasquez-Reed Enterprises, now simply Vasquez Enterprises, and the sudden departure of Dominic Reed. As Camila sat alone in her office, watching the headlines scroll across the screens, she felt neither triumph nor sorrow. The empire was secure, the betrayal avenged. But the cost had been high. 15 years of her life invested in a partnership built on sand. Her phone chimed with message. After message, reporters seeking comments, business associates expressing support or concern, friends checking on her well-being, she ignored them all, focusing instead on a single email that had just arrived from an unexpected source. James Wellington, the competitor who had met with Dominic. Camila, it read. Impressive move today. When you're ready to discuss real partnership opportunities, I'm available. Unlike some, I value integrity in business. She closed the email without responding. There would be time for new alliances later. For now, she had an empire to rebuild this time, with no illusions about who held the power. Phoenix Ventures 6, months after Dominic Reed's dramatic exit from Vasquez Enterprises. The company's stock had risen 27%. The business press had moved on from the scandal to focus on Camila's ambitious new initiatives. A revolutionary green building program in developing nations, an affordable housing venture in major U.S. cities, and the technology division's breakthrough smart city platform that was revolutionizing urban planning. Camila stood on the balcony of her new penthouse, overlooking Central Park, the autumn leaves creating a tapestry of red and gold below. She had sold the home she'd shared with Dominic, unable to escape the memories that lingered in every corner. This space, designed entirely to her taste, represented her fresh start. The Jakarta contract is finalized, Talia announced, joining her on the balcony with 2 glasses of champagne. The government approved all our sustainability proposals. That's the 4th major international deal this quarter, Camila noted. Accepting the glass? We should celebrate. We should, Talia agreed. The whole team has been working non-stop since everything changed. They didn't often speak directly about what the staff now referred to as the transition. The events had become company lore, whispered about in break rooms and recounted 2 new hires as a cautionary tale about underestimating Camila Vasquez. How are you really doing? Talia asked, her tone shifting from professional to personal. As Camila's oldest friend in the company, she was one of the few people who could ask such a question. Camila considered deflecting, as she had for months when similar questions arose. Instead, she found herself answering honestly. I'm recalibrating. For 15 years, every decision I made involved considering Dominic. Now, I answer only to myself. It's both liberating and disorienting. And personally, Camila smiled faintly. The divorce was finalized last week. He didn't contest the settlement after Marcus presented the full evidence portfolio. That's not what I meant. I know. Camila turned to look at the Manhattan skyline. I'm not interested in another relationship, if that's what you're asking. My focus is on building something meaningful, something entirely mine. Their conversation was interrupted by Camila's phone. Felix's name flashed on the screen. Mrs. Vasquez, I apologize for bothering you after hours, but there's a situation that requires your attention. James Wellington is in the lobby, insisting on seeing you. Camila frowned. Wellington had made several overtures since the transition, all of which she had politely declined. Tell him I'm unavailable and to schedule a proper appointment through channels. I tried, but he's quite adamant. Says it concerns Dominic Reed and information you need to know immediately. Camila exchanged glances with Talia. Send him up. Minutes later, James Wellington stood in her living room, looking uncomfortable despite his expensive suit and practiced charm. At 58, he was one of the old guard of New York real estate, a contemporary of her father's, who had initially dismissed Camila as a dilettante playing at business. Thank you for seeing me, Camila, he began, declining her offer of a drink. I wouldn't have intruded if it wasn't important. You mentioned Dominic, she prompted, her tone businesslike. Wellington nodded. He approached me about a partnership 6 months ago, as you know. What you may not know is that after your reorganization, he didn't leave the industry. I'm aware he's consulting for Rediscover in Chicago, Camila replied. She had kept tabs on Dominic's movements, though not out of any personal interest. It's more than consulting. He's been systematically approaching your clients, vendors, and employees with privileged information. 3 of your development projects have experienced mysterious permitting delays. Your Beijing proposal was underbid by Rediscover using specifications remarkably similar to your confidential designs. Camila maintained her composure, though internally her mind raced. And you're sharing this out of the goodness of your heart? Wellington smiled thinly. Hardly. Rediscover approached me last week with a partnership offer. When I saw what they were planning, essentially a coordinated attempt to dismantle key parts of your company, I recognized it for what it was, Dominic's revenge play. And you declined. I did. Contrary to what you might think of me, Camila, I respected your father greatly. What Dominic is attempting goes beyond healthy competition into something personal and vindictive. It has no place in our industry. After Wellington left, Camila called an emergency meeting of her core team. By midnight, they had assembled in her home office. Talia, Marcus, Jasmine, Felix, and Harrison, the investigator she had kept on retainer. Wellington's information checks out, Harrison confirmed, projecting documents onto the wall screen. Dominic has been quietly acquiring small but strategic shares in companies connected to your supply chain. Rediscover has hired 7 former Vasquez employees in key positions, all with access to proprietary information. The Beijing situation is particularly troubling, Talia added. Those specifications weren't just similar to ours, they were identical. Down to the custom sustainability metrics we developed internally. Marcus leaned forward. We have grounds for litigation based on corporate espionage and violation of non-disclosure agreements. Camila listened silently, processing the information. Part of her had expected something like this. Dominic was too proud, too accustomed to power, to simply accept defeat and disappear. Dated. Litigation would be public, messy, and ultimately a distraction from our core mission. Dominic wants to drag us into a prolonged fight that would damage both companies. Then what do you suggest? Jasmine asked. A slow smile spread across Camila's face, not the warm expression her team was accustomed to, but something sharper, reminiscent of the strategic brilliance that had outmaneuvered Dominic months earlier. Phoenix Ventures wasn't just a holding company for our existing assets, she revealed. It was always meant to be something more, a completely new entity with a different approach to development. I've been planning it since before Dominic's betrayal. She stood and walked to a hidden safe behind a painting, removing a leather portfolio that none of them had seen before. Inside were architectural renderings, business plans, and financial projections for a revolutionary development company focused exclusively on sustainable, community-centered projects in underserved markets. While Dominic plots against Vasquez Enterprises, we'll be building something he can't touch because he doesn't even know it exists, Camila explained. Phoenix will rise from completely different ashes than he expects. Over the next 3 weeks, Camila orchestrated a series of moves that appeared from the outside to be defensive reactions to market pressures. She sold off non-essential assets, reorganized divisions, and announced a scaling back of certain international projects, all of which financial analysts interpreted as signs of distress. Dominic, watching from Chicago, undoubtedly believed his strategy was working. Rediscover's stock rose as Vasquez Enterprises appeared to falter. What remained invisible was the quiet transfer of key personnel, intellectual property, and capital to Phoenix Ventures, which operated from an unmarked office in Brooklyn. The time Dominic realized what was happening. Phoenix had secured exclusive contracts with 5 major cities for innovative community development projects that would redefine urban living. The final piece of Camila's strategy came in the form of a surprise announcement. Vasquez Enterprises was merging with Wellington Group in a deal that would make the combined entity the largest development company in North America. With Camila as CEO and James Wellington as Chairman Emeritus, on the day the merger was announced, Camila sat alone in her office, watching Rediscover's stock plummet in real time on her monitor. Her phone rang an unlisted number. You think you've won again? Dominic's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. This isn't about winning or losing, Dominic, Camila replied calmly. Never was. This is about building something meaningful. You've destroyed everything I've worked for. No, you did that yourself when you decided betrayal was an acceptable business strategy. She paused. This is the last time we'll speak. If you make any further moves against my companies, the evidence Harrison has compiled will go directly to the SEC and the district attorney. Before he could respond, she ended the call and blocked the number. That evening, Camila hosted a small gathering at her penthouse for the Phoenix Ventures team. Bright, idealistic architects, engineers, and community organizers who shared her vision for ethical development. As she watched them discuss projects with passionate intensity, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: genuine purpose. Later, standing alone on the balcony, she watched the city lights shimmer against the night sky. For 15 years, she had compromised her vision to accommodate Dominic's ambitions. She had dimmed her brilliance to avoid outshining him. She had settled for building an empire that reflected their merged identities rather than her true vision. Phoenix Ventures was different. It was wholly hers, a company built on innovation, sustainability, and community impact rather than mere profit and prestige. The betrayal that had nearly broken her had instead forced her to reclaim her authentic purpose. Her phone chimed with a text from Talia. Wellington just called. The Beijing government wants to meet about implementing the Phoenix community model across all new developments. They're sending a delegation next week. Camila smiled. The news that would once have prompted her to immediately tell Dominic now belonged solely to her, another small freedom in a life, increasingly defined by choices made on her own terms. A soft rain began to fall, but Camila remained on the balcony, letting the cool drops touch her face. The woman who had once defined herself as part of a power couple now stood alone, stronger, clearer in purpose, and finally free to create the legacy she had always envisioned, not as a billionaire's wife, but as the architect of her own destiny.